All right, today we are diving deep into something that's, well, it's pretty much the engine of decentralized finance, or DeFi. We're talking about liquidity pools. If you've ever been in the crypto world and wondered how you can trade tokens instantly without some big company in the middle, this is your answer. So, think about the old way of doing things. On a traditional exchange, it can feel slow. You put in an order and then you just wait. You're waiting for some other person out there to agree to your price. But liquidity pools, they totally flip that script. Instead of waiting for a person, you trade directly with this big pool of funds that's just sitting there, ready to go. This solves the massive headache of liquidity, making trades happen right now. Okay, so that obviously leads to the million-dollar question. What is a liquidity pool, really? Let's break this whole idea down, starting from square one. At its heart, a liquidity pool is basically a big pot of crypto tokens. And these tokens are locked up inside something called a smart contract, which, sounds fancy, but it's really just a bit of code that runs all by itself on the blockchain. This shared pile of money is what lets people trade, lend, and borrow, all without a bank or some central company calling the shots. And this is where it gets really powerful. Because it's decentralized, there's no single boss. Because it's automated, everything is super efficient and just works. But the most crucial part, it's community-powered. These pools are funded by regular users, people just like you and me, who are called liquidity providers. And pretty much anyone can be one. This vending machine analogy, it's probably the best way to picture it. Seriously, you're not trying to haggle with another person. You just walk up to this digital machine, pop your token in, and bam, the token you want comes right out. It's simple, it's direct, and it's always on. Okay, so we get what they are, but how does this vending machine actually work? What's going on behind the scenes? Let's pull back the curtain and look at the mechanics that make it all tick. So let's say you decide you want to become a liquidity provider, or LP for short. Here's how it goes. First, you deposit an equal value of two different tokens into a pool. When you do that, the smart contract hands you back these special LP tokens. Just think of them as your receipt. They prove you own a slice of that pool. Now, whenever traders come along and use the pool to swap tokens, they pay a tiny fee. And because you helped provide the liquidity, you get a cut of those fees. That's it. That's how you earn. So you might be wondering, if there's no one matching buy and sell orders, how in the world are prices set? Well, that is the job of the automated market maker, or AMM. You can think of it as the brain of the whole operation. It's a clever algorithm that's constantly looking at the balance of the two tokens in the pool, and from that ratio, it automatically figures out the price. This little piece of code is what completely replaces that slow, old-school order book system. Here's another great way to think about it. Picture a community water tank. You decide to add some water to help keep it full for everyone. Now, every time someone comes by to take some water out, you get a small reward for being a contributor. The tank is always there, always has water, all because people like you chipped in. That's a liquidity pool. Okay, earning rewards just for parking your crypto somewhere, it sounds amazing, right? But it's not the whole story. To really understand this, we've got to look at both sides of the coin, the incredible rewards and the very, very real risks. And listen, the upside is definitely attractive. Your main reward comes from those trading fees. Every single time someone makes a trade in your pool, you get a tiny slice. On top of that, a lot of platforms will throw in bonus tokens. You might have heard of ones like sushi or cake, just as an extra thank you. And all of this opens the door to something called yield farming, which is basically the art of taking all these rewards and putting them to work to earn even more. But you knew there had to be a catch, right? Passive income is never completely risk-free. So what happens if the crypto market does what it does best and gets super volatile? What happens when the prices of those two tokens you deposited start flying in opposite directions? This brings us to the single biggest risk for anyone providing liquidity: impermanent loss. It's a weird name, but it's a super important concept. To put it simply, it's when the value of your assets inside the pool ends up being less than if you had just done nothing. Less than if you had just held them in your own wallet. It's called impermanent because the loss only becomes real when you pull your funds out. The more the prices of your two tokens drift away from each other, the bigger this risk gets. And yeah, impermanent loss isn't the only ghost in the machine. The smart contract code itself could have a bug that a hacker could exploit. The platform you're using might not be legitimate. We've all heard horror stories about rug pulls. On top of that, transaction fees, especially on a network like Ethereum, can get so high they just eat up all your profits. And of course, the wild volatility of the crypto market just makes everything a bit riskier. So, after hearing about all those risks, you might be thinking, whoa, okay, maybe this isn't for me. And that's totally fair. But if you're still curious, it is possible to dip your toes in safely. So, let's walk through the right way to get started. First things first, you have to choose a platform, and it's best to stick with the big trusted names. For example, you've got Uniswap, which is kind of the OG on Ethereum for all sorts of tokens. Then there's PancakeSwap on a different blockchain, which is famous for its super low fees. Curve is a really interesting one. It specializes in stablecoins, tokens that are pegged to the US dollar. That can really help reduce that impermanent loss risk we were just talking about. And Balancer lets you get even more complex with pools that can hold up to 8 different tokens. And look, no matter which one you're even thinking about, you gotta follow this safety checklist. Stick to the big platforms that have been audited. Use a secure wallet, obviously. But this next one is the most important rule of all. Start small. Seriously. Only put in an amount of money that you would be perfectly okay with losing while you're learning how this all works. Really, truly understand the risks and keep a close eye on your investment. When you zoom out from all the technical details and the risks, the big idea behind liquidity pools is actually pretty amazing. This isn't just about making crypto trading a little faster. This is one of the fundamental building blocks for a completely open financial system, one that's available to literally anyone on the planet with an internet connection, no bank account needed. And that really just leaves us with one final massive question. With all this power to create financial services that are instant, automatic, and open to everyone, could this really be the future of finance? The technology is still so young, and the risks are definitely real, but you just can't deny its potential to completely change the way we think about money.